Jeff, welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast, my friend. How are you?
Really good. Thanks so much for having me. This is awesome.
It's so good. I'm really grateful that I got to come and spend some time with you. And the interesting question that you asked me first was, what does success mean to you? What does success mean to Ryan Hartley? And first and foremost, before I ask you your definition, why that question? Why success?
I'll tell you, it actually, it was one of those seminal moments for me. There was an exercise that one of my coaches had given me, and it was to define success for myself in three sentences. And I had to finish the sentence, I know I'm successful when, or I know I'm successful if, and then three different ways. And what I realized is I was 100% focused on financial. It was only money was the only way I had linked it. And I had never been given the freedom to choose anything different. Like that's what went in, that's how what got stuck. And that exercise, as I could have money for one of them, like to have the resources, but two other ones. And then I got to really get into it. And for me personally, it was having an abundance of energy and feeling full of life all day long, every day, right? So it was a health one, and then the other one was helping as many people live the life of their dreams as possible. And that's like all of a sudden together, those three things completely changed like how I made decisions. That was a new filter. So that was real pivotal for me. And I think I'm not alone, that some people do get kind of constrained by what society says it is. And so it's just nice to have the conversation with people who are really living successfully holistically.
I love that. I love that. I was doing a little bit of digging as you do when you've got guests coming on, and I see that you have a degree in spiritual psychology, and that's an interesting phrase I'd never really heard before. Spiritual psychology. It almost feels a little bit heart and mind. Talk to us about spiritual psychology and why was that a thing for you?
Yeah, it's a really beautiful concept. And there's only a couple programs in the world that kind of
Mm.
focus on that and do a degree in it. And the story there is I'm a self-proclaimed kind of self-help kid. In eighth grade, I had what they clinically diagnosed as like a bad attitude.
Yeah.
And my dad, to his credit, instead of writing it off as those terrible preteen years, he gave me Earl Nightingale's Strangest Secret in the World cassette tape back then,
Hmm.
which I reluctantly listened to, and then I listened to again, and then I really listened to, and it set me on a path of consuming as much of this great material as I could. I became the most positive kid in my hometown by a lot. There's not a lot I was from a very small town, so that's not saying that much, but it really set me on a different path. The power of our thoughts, the power of goals, and all of those things. And so, and Ryan, I told and so spiritual. So fast forwarding, I knew I wanted to be in the industry of kind of helping people, and the psychology was super important to me. But this idea of connecting that we are more than just this, whatever that
Mm.
means, but that we have
Mm.
power, like our thoughts create. And I think people have heard that, and it feels woo-woo on one side, but there's more and more science always backing it up.
Yeah.
And people like Dr. Joe Dispenza have really done a lot of good in this, and Bruce Lipton has been really powerful. So there's a lot more science coming in, but
Mm.
my program had a little bit of that slant, and I met someone kind of coincidentally in line at a restaurant in Austin, Texas, who had just completed this program. I ended up talking to her for a couple minutes, and I had never been listened to like she listened to me. I
Mm.
never felt someone in a restaurant filled with people completely become present with me. And she said, I just completed this program. I just want to know more about her. And so I looked into it, and I applied that, the next day. That was, I wanted that. So that was the way I found it.
And all of a sudden life is different just based on that interaction.
Yeah. I love pulling the threads, right? Like, because it does go back, and often, you know, any of these little things that could have changed. And so that ends up
Mm.
being a way to get to gratitude for all of it, right?
Mm. I love that. And another thing that will instantly change your life overnight is becoming a father. I know that you're a very proud father to a young man. What did that do for you?
Oh, um, I mean, so many. Like that's that like easily you're gonna have to rein me in because I just love talking about my son and being a
Yeah.
dad. But the biggest deal is if I was being totally honest, I hadn't felt unconditional love for anyone
Sure.
ever before. I thought I love my parents, I love my wife, but there was, easily ways that they could earn more or get less. And then this little being came, and it does not matter. And even when he's having a little tantrum or it doesn't matter. I'm like, there's no place I'd rather be. There's no one I'd rather be with. My heart completely. That was a brand new experience for me, and one that I know some people get in other ways, but it's just
Mm.
been like life is just better with a heart that's more open. So it's just been he's been kind of that way shower, just like this is how to live like life, feeling love for someone so much, and then it's been much easier to extract that and say like, well, if I could just kind of like people a little bit more,
Mm.
closer to how much I love my son, I'd be a much better person. Yeah.
Mm. You through your company, your organization, which we'll come to in a second, you put out a number of blogs and you talk about corporate culture. Do you think like leaders get anywhere close to feeling the same feelings for the work and the teams that they work with and lead?
The same feelings as I
The
hope they would,
unconditional
or
love, yeah, unconditional love.
great leaders do in
Mm.
any industry. I think they really get that their role is to bring the best out in another, and the
Mm.
relationship is kind of parental. Just the way that I would be with my son. It's not about telling him exactly what to do, although I do that sometimes, um, but it's about creating the environment where he can flourish. And
Mm,
great
mm,
leaders do the exact same thing. And when they do, and they watch someone grow in a way that they weren't there the year before or 6 months before, I think most of them feel a little bit of that kind of, I don't know, pride in like watching or supporting
mm,
someone flourish. And so I think great companies do have a family feel, and
mm,
great leaders do create teams where they feel very connected personally,
mm.
to the people in their organization.
Mm. It was the changing point for me. I became a first line manager and a parent around about the same time in my point of life. So I had a very clear example of what I felt was the same thing. You know, like you say, you're nurturing, you're supporting, you're helping a human being grow, and you're I felt that level of responsibility for the people that I was leading as well. So that was very transformational for me. Talk to us about Enjoy Global, the role that you have. How did that become, and what great work do you do in the world?
Yeah, thank you. So we've been around about 10 years, and our name was very purposefully chosen.
Mm,
One, for us to be creating a culture where people really were in joy with the work they were doing on purpose, and feeling like and knowing that they were contributing in a big way to something they believed in. So what we do, we have a product, and it makes growing a game. It makes change a game. And so we have a platform. It turns content into a challenge. 30-day
mm,
challenges have been
mm,
what we do. And so we've worked with a lot of big organizations, to help them shape their culture, where they work on emotional intelligence or they work on the core values of their
mm,
company. And it's a way for people to actually practice, whether you're the CEO or you are the janitor. Um, every day there's a way for you to put emotional intelligence into practice, or one of the leadership behaviors that the company wants everybody. So there's always a way. And to wrap that up into a little game where there's a little sense of community, there's some prizes. There's a lot of positive reinforcement for everything you do, and just
mm,
celebrating the wins. It becomes really a good use of like a social media platform. Like it's a social media with a focus,
Mm,
where there's community, where people are only cheering for each other, high-fiving or commenting or celebrating. So that in corporate America. And then I'll tell you, since the pandemic hit,
mm,
we've had a chance to work with coaches, trainers, speakers, and authors. And this has become a real sweet thing that we were hoping to someday get to, where they're using our platform to turn their amazing content, their books, their coaching programs into challenges to scale, so that, as a coach, there's only so many hours in a week, so
mhm.
you can only help so many people. But most coaches have it in their heart that they really want to just help as many people as possible. So now we have coaches who have 150 people in a challenge, 60 people over here, 80 people there, and now they're able to do that kind of on a global scale, um, as one of two things: as a lead in to deeper
Mm.
work, or or just to give more people a chance to experience them, which is really beautiful. So those are a couple of our passions and areas of expertise.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you and I are obviously going to have some conversations after this, but it's the concept of g- gamification. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right, but
However you say it, it's going to sound better than how I say it. Your accent's awesome, man.
well, half my audience is English, so um, what is important about gamifying or having that gamification as part of the challenge? What difference does that make?
Yeah, done correctly. So I come from the video game industry, um,
Hmm.
and so I was a partner in a video game publishing company in Austin, Texas, for several years at the beginning
Mm,
of my career. And um, the reason that's important is because as an industry, they studied billions of points of data to see what keeps us playing stuff.
mm,
And they found that there's 7 elements of a game, that trigger certain parts of our brain to want more. Um,
mm.
and I always ask if there's parents that I'm talking to. I always say parents have known this for thousands of years. Like, my son's name is Bodhi. He's 6, and the example I always give, as to the power of gamification is, if I want Bodhi to clean his room, one experience is I can make him. I'm the dad. I'm bigger than he is. That's one experience. But if I tell him about the little boy in New York who currently holds the world record for the fastest cleaning up of a room ever, it's 4 minutes and 32 seconds, and I don't think it'll ever be beaten. But if he wants to give it a try, I'm happy to get the stopwatch. Papa, get the stopwatch. I know I can do it. Now he gets the exact same thing done, but his experience of it is totally different.
Yeah.
So as adults, it turns out we're not that much different. If we can trick our brain into feeling like we're playing something or a part of a challenge, we can turn something as hard as forming a new habit into something we actually look forward to doing.
Mm.
So that's really, when done correctly, gamification can be a huge uh, game changer. That's no pun
Yeah.
intended, but yeah, it can be a powerful tool.
But as humans, we want to do more of what is fun, right?
Yes. And when people say fun, like, I think I would like to just mention this. Like, there's 4 things that all of us crave to bring our best self forward. We all want to feel valued,
Hmm.
is number one. That's always, for employees especially, that's the number one complaint every year in the
Mm,
yeah. Number two is we want to feel connected to others. We're communal beings. We feel better when we're connected. Third, we want to feel like what we're doing matters, that we're contributing to something bigger than ourselves, no matter what
mm,
our role is, that we get that connection. And then fourth, and finally, that we feel like we're growing personally and or professionally, that we can stop every now and then, look back and say, a year ago, today I'm a much better version of myself than I was a year ago. To the degree that we experience those things, fun, in my definition of that, would be a fully engaged human being. Like, then life is fun. It can still be challenging,
mm,
so fun sometimes to people means light and easy and this, but fun for me in that regard is fully engaged in life.
mm,
And so using, the tools, we can create that environment where it's
mm.
not just playful, but it's delivering on the deeper cravings that we have as humans to bring our best self forward.
Yeah. And I guess you know, I see many apps now as a parent, and I look at my kids love Dude Perfect, the YouTubers, and do all the trick shots and stuff, and they've got an app which is just riddled with gamification, but little microtransactions of buying more, or you can't now play it for 20 minutes. You need to let this thing recharge. I'm sure that's a gamification that says stop doing something when you love it, because then you don't stop thinking about it. You want to do more, right?
Yeah.
But there's some ethics involved to this stuff, right? How do you balance the line of ethics and with the work that you do?
Yeah, well, for us, it's pretty easy, but with any technology, that's always a question, right? The same technology, any of the new technologies can be used for good, can be used for bad.
Mm,
So um, with us, it's very easy ethically because everything that we're doing is designed to support the individual who's going to be using this. There's no like there are no extra transactions or additional ways for us to earn more or make more. So that's, so some of that's immediately taken out. The bigger deal, again, for us is having a client of ours see that it works for their people, like the end users, if they're working directly with us, or if we're working with a coach, for their people to see that this is working. And we're upfront about it. This is designed to trick your brain.
And if you're listening, I think we've just paused. I'm going to give Jeff a moment to return.
I'm so sorry. I don't I don't know what happened. So I got
You're
kicked
all
off.
good, my friend. I did my best to fill the time. I was talking about go to your website, go check out the podcast, and then thankfully you arrived, because it was turning into too much of a monologue.
So for us, again, I think it's important for everybody why they're doing something. Make sure that you're, again, doing it for pure reasons. But for us, the ethics of that is we're all being manipulated in a lot of ways every day. So using that to your own advantage and stepping into something that is going to be supporting building the muscles that you actually want anyway. Then it's just playing, then you're a part of the game, but you also understand that it is a game. Yeah.
Why do you think the likes of Tony Robbins are using things like this?
Because they work. So like those, they're doing one every couple months now, a better future, better. And it's because, so the fundamental thing is that people all want to change. We can ask anybody, we all have New Year's resolutions. We all know that we can't keep them. Like everyone's struggling with this idea that we'd like to be better versions of ourselves. And most of the time it doesn't happen. The reason challenges are great is because they give people a little taste, using all of the psychology and the gamification to keep people doing something long enough to get a new result in their life. But it's set up in a way that's easy for people, no matter how busy they are. It plays on the community, the community effect of having others and some accountability. But once people get a taste of transformation, they're in. The problem with a book or a course is, like the most recent data that I saw is only 4% of people complete online courses that they've bought. And it's because it's hard on our own without a support structure to figure out how we're going to do that. And the same with reading. Most people are only reading a book a year, if that. And the second part is, if we just get the information, which is the transfer of knowledge from most books and courses, it doesn't mean we've applied it. So courses or challenges get people to take action right now. Like it's kind of Tony's big deal, is just like stand up right now, shout this, get into state, change state. And the challenges do the same thing. Here's something that just do this one thing, you're going to start to have a different experience. Then you do one more thing and so on. So challenges, the reason they all do them is because they work. And I think the foundational part of that is, again, it gets people into action so they get a taste of the new experience that they're actually wanting. Once they get a taste, they want more.
I have the Wim Hof app, and there are challenges that he sets within that. And I know full well that if I do 5 cold showers in a row, I'm going to get a sticker. and I know that it's tracking my activity. And I know that, so if I do one and it's not tracked on the app, it's like, well, did it even happen?
Yeah.
So it's funny how these things can drive human behavior, right? In a positive way.
Right. And that is fun, right? Like, because cold showers, I don't care how long you've been doing Wim Hof, it's just, they're never fun. But if it's a goal, and that's where it's 5 days, 10 days, a month, like that's part of it too. It's like, get to the 5 days because there's a reward. And we work well as humans like that. So if we know that, we can start to use it to our advantage and really start to create change in not only a playful way, but real change. We can actually be changing. Most people, the biggest, regret they have is they wake up one day and they're 65 and it's like, I'm basically repeated the same year for 40 years, and so I encourage everyone just to find a method to make change fun and doable, so that anything that comes to mind, you can do and be that.
Mm. Yeah. So I get the concept. Can you help bring a particular challenge to life? Like if there was a coach listening that wanted to run a challenge, what sort of things might you be able to transform their content with? What would their challenge look and feel like?
Yeah. So it's the great thing is, again, most coaches have a lot of content. Content is not the question. So like our belief is if more people would just dabble in your content, like the world would be a better place. So the way that we structure a challenge is there's 7 elements on a challenge, kind of dashboard. Only a couple of them you have to put your content in. So it says like, here, put your content in here, but the rest of it is like community, it's participant based. So everyone's sharing. For example, we're big proponents of positive psychology, which is basically just if we can get people into a positive state, they're much more likely to stick with something, have more fun doing it. And there's the cool thing about that is they found that there's some simple exercises that no matter where we fall in the continuum, everyone can learn to move themselves into a positive state more frequently and stay there longer with practice. So part of the challenge that's just built in is a community section. It works a lot like a news feed on Facebook, but it's just sharing small daily wins. So as the coach, you don't really have to do anything, but you can watch all your participants sharing their wins around whatever topic you're working on. And then you can high five and you can comment, and so can other people. And it becomes a really beautiful connective tissue, but you don't have to do a lot. And it's providing reinforcement. It's providing a nice habit building for celebrating the process. We also do that with gratitude. So there's a couple sections that are just user driven, like their user content. Then the places where they would take their content, we're big proponents again of dripping out a little bit of content over time. That's the best way for humans to learn. So there's a coach's corner, for example, and every other day basically of a challenge, it's programmed to drop one nugget of wisdom, one anecdote, something. But again, most coaches have, hours and hours and hours of this. So it's not, so you just curate, like for a 30-day challenge, 14 of those, and then they're scheduled, then they drip out. People get a chance to absorb them, live with them for a day, try them on, and then get another one. So that's it. It becomes a really nice way to get a little content and get into action, a little content, get into action, which is a nice, then people start self-selecting. It's like, oh my goodness, I found my person. Ryan's really helping me, like this is working. And so not only do they say yes to whatever's next, whether it's one-on-one coaching or a bigger course, they tell people like, I found someone. And so, that's what we're all looking for. And that's why, again, having a good system and being able to take some of your great content and just plug it in, but not have to figure out the system is a real, you can literally in an hour set up a challenge and look more professional or as professional as Tony Robbins, who's got a huge team and spending millions of dollars to set up his.
I love that. And I love talking to you in a way that you're clearly someone who is energized by the work that you do. You seem like you love it. Like, why this?
I mean, it goes back to that little kid. Like I realized like good content changes the game. But only if I used it. As soon as I would stop reading or stop doing something, I would fall back and quickly become a less good version of myself. So this idea of, again, being able to enjoy life, become the person I actually really want to be is personal. Everyone on our team feels the same way, and they've all been clients or used the product and seen like, oh my goodness, like I'm actually better with my wife or I'm better with my kids. It's not only work related. And so that mission of, again, my definition of success, one of those was helping as many people live the life of their dreams as possible. This in a small way is allowing, like, one, I get to work with people who I would easily pay to be in their company because they're just amazing coaches and authors and trainers. and to support them getting their work out into the world and help ultimately, that kind of ripple effect, those end users become better versions of themselves, enjoy their life more, in hopefully because we played a small role in facilitating uh, and creating a way that was
Mm,
easy for them to do that.
I love that. You know, the episode that's just gone out today, 137 with Brian Famato, he's the CEO of a company called Leaders Surf. He takes executives on leadership retreats and he teaches them how to surf. You know, and it's a transformational experience. The reason I'm raising that is because I think too often people miss the fact that you can do what you love and help people, and those two things. It's a we rise by lifting others mentality. You know, you
It's
do what you love, use your gifts and your talents, and you're rewarded with the fulfillment and the growth. And
I'll tell you, that was not an easy lesson. I heard that young, again, listening to people, but I couldn't figure it out. I really thought, like, if I could just make enough money so I can retire, then I can do all the things that I want. And
yeah,
I didn't have that belief that it could be the same thing. So it took me a long time, like
yeah.
meandering around and kind of years and years of trying different things, but all of it looking back as that great Steve Jobs talk at Stanford, like the dots have connected. And I think that's one thing I would just, for people, if you are listening, if you're checking into what does move you and starting to pay attention to those things,
Mm.
it might take a little while, but the pieces are starting to come together. And there is something that's, when you look back 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you're gonna be like, oh my goodness, I had to do that, because
Yeah.
then that uniquely qualified me to do this, and then all of a sudden here I am, right where I didn't even know I wanted to be.
Mm. It's funny, isn't it? I don't know how you feel about this, what I'm about to say, but I look back and I think the biggest rejections, the biggest no's, the biggest pain, they were all necessary. You know, they almost became the greatest things that never happened to me.
Mm, right? I mean, there's another way I've heard that said is, the worst thing, like if they've done a study where they've asked people, what's the very worst thing that's ever happened to you? And then they asked that same group, what's the best thing that ever happened to you? And then they asked, is it correlated in any way? And like 85 to 89% of the very best thing that's ever happened to anybody was directly correlated to the very worst thing
Yeah.
that's ever happened to them, whether it's a rejection, a no, something not working out, or sometimes just falling apart in different ways, but out of that. So I think it's beautiful because it brings up the idea that life is more circular,
Mm.
and that it's not, we're not going to experience all only this. It's a cycle. And so if we just understand we're in a different stage of the cycle, it can hopefully hurt less when we're not experiencing what we think we want,
Mm.
until we get to a place where we're experiencing the feelings we do want.
You and I had great conversation around love and energy and Joe Dispenza and heart math. And how does that show up in your life? You're busy, you're an executive, you're running a company, you're a father, husband, like you, all these things. And that's a constant depletion of energy through serving. How do you fill yourself up?
Thank you. This is a really interesting. I'm gonna try to keep this a shorter version of the story. But when the pandemic hit,
Yeah.
all of a sudden I wasn't traveling to meetings. I had permission to stay at home, and I had been saying that I wanted to up level my self care for a long time. I think a lot of people, like, okay, I know I need to do this. I'd like to
Mhm.
do this more. Well, I finally had, no excuse, and I'd been listening to some people, and they're like, you gotta, you should be doing these things. And I kept saying, yeah, I should be doing those things. And I finally started doing a couple of, and it was unbelievable. My self-care now is, things I had always wanted to be doing, but I do Wim Hof morning and night, just a kind of a 12 to 15 minute breathing, which really works for me. I've tried meditating a bunch of times. This is the thing that calms me down. I feel the
Mhm.
difference. I finally went to the doctor, had blood work done and to see, and I got, a new set of supplements. I did a cleanse, and just
Mm.
those things where all of a sudden I was like feeling better and better. My energy was good. And the
Mm.
last kind of key to the puzzle was sleep. And I just never slept well. I was always, and
Yeah.
I started with the meditation helped. I started having a little nighttime ritual. And then I got, I don't know if you've heard of 8 Sleep, but I got this bed that's now temperature controlled. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and it totally, like, so now I sleep cool, like, and my quality of sleep has changed.
So good.
So anyway, my thing is like, that is not something to postpone, right? I'm also getting older, and I want to be a young, I want to feel young for my son, and I want to be around for a while.
Mm,
So self-care, I just hope everybody just, like, wherever it is on the list, if it's not number one, move it up,
mm,
and figure out little things that do support you and feel good. Because my wife makes fun of me now, but my self-care ritual is so ridiculous all through the day.
mm.
She's like, I have skincare like, now I say yes to everything. I've got skincare products, and she's like, this is and but she's now into it, and she's now, like,
Yeah.
so it does have a nice pass on effect as well to those around us.
I love it. I love it, and I'm smiling so much because here's a guy that's really got it. He's understood that by investing in himself, he is infinitely better for those who need him. And isn't that the real reason behind self-care, self-love?
Yeah, I think to enjoy, that coming home, the last thing I'd say on this is, I was thinking the right thoughts, but I didn't
Mm,
feel
mm,
how I wanted to feel. I thought positively, I said positive things, but I didn't feel grateful. I didn't feel in love with what I was doing, or often with the people I was around. And that was a huge
mm,
disconnect. And so I
mm,
think, again, to our conversation with Joe, about Joe Dispenza, like, to understand that that heart and mind must connect, that feeling must be attached to the thoughts. Otherwise, they're not nearly as powerful, and ultimately, not going to take root. So I started focusing on my feeling, and now doing anything for me to feel better is the starting point to being a better, to being more of service, to enjoying my life more, which, in a selfish way, and I think for everyone to get, if we just enjoyed our life more,
mm,
we all know that we're more patient, we're less judgmental. If we were just, like, if we made that the only priority, the world would be, like, 180 degrees better tomorrow, if
mm,
everyone was just focusing on their own, again, not hurting anyone else in the process, but filling themselves up, making sure they were connecting to a
mm,
feeling of joy or love
mm,
or gratitude. We talk a lot about it, but for me, it was talk. I could talk about gratitude, and I could speak on it even, but I wasn't feeling it until only recently.
yeah, I love that. And the irony is that this isn't focused on self for hedonistic sake. This is focusing on self so that when we give ourselves what we need, we can show up in the world not needing anything else from anyone. And we realize that the natural state of being human is to collaborate, is to cooperate, is to serve and be kind. It's only when we get subjected to lack of safety, fear, fight, flight, freeze, that we become self-focused. But yeah, I love your perspective on that, my friend. It's really fascinating. I looked at one of your blogs recently. It said about the 4 pillars of a positive culture that will power a company's success. And for the listeners, those 4 were customer focus, productivity, success mindset, and a strong team. And I just love to focus on the success mindset. You've talked about what success means to you as an individual, but how do we as leaders and as teams and as organizations create a culture where we all have this success mindset?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is to start with that the mind is a muscle. And,
Mm,
where a lot of leaders have defaulted, and I think it's to the detriment of all of us, and everyone understands when they think about it for a moment, is that it doesn't work this way. But we would never go to the gym one day in January for 2 hours and expect to be in shape all year.
mm,
That would never be the case. We all understand our physical body needs consistent, repetitive exercise to be optimal. And our mind is the same. And yet we don't have that as, like, a base layer of support in our organizations or in our families, for ourselves, for most of us. And so that's the starting point, is just understanding that the mind is a muscle. And if we want to create a certain kind of culture where people are positive, or they're focused on service, or they're
mm,
really highly appreciative, or connected to the mission, or they're they're bringing their strengths forward in a full and confident way. What we have to do is give them a way to exercise that muscle. And that's what and again, that's the core, is because one great training, and that's the problem. Like, people will go, they'll bring in an amazing speaker. It's amazing. And if I'm always moved by a story my dad shared, is, yeah, he was an optometrist, and he said every year they go to a conference where they have a keynote speaker. And this one keynote speaker came in and said, I'm going to give you the keys to these are the keys to success. If you do these, I guarantee like life will change. So he talks, he does his great, everyone's standing ovation. Then he says, before I go, I just want you to know, I'm going to be back next year. I'm going to give the exact same talk, because only 2% of you are going to actually do anything that I just shared. So my challenge is prove me wrong, make it 5%, make it 10%. But that's the thing. One great talk, it makes us feel good. It inspires us, but without some sort of structure, without some sort of accountability, without support, it's very hard to actually create and sustain anything. So if just like if we want a new marketing plan, we want a new sales plan, a new operation plan, there's structure put in place. There's accountability, there's milestones, there's key metrics. Same with building culture or mindset. You just have to approach it in the way we'd approach any other thing that we wanted to develop.
Love that. What does the phrase "always better than yesterday" mean to you?
To me, you've nailed it with that, because one, I love that it breaks it down into a 24-hour period. And for me, I feel like, again, personally, it was easy for me to get distracted by years in the future, years in the past. When I'm focused on just being a little better than yesterday, that feels doable, and it keeps me present. So what it means is present and it's not soft, but present and incremental improvement, which is doable. It feels doable, which I think is, I think that's why New Year's resolutions that's why they don't work. I want to lose 30 pounds. That's not doable. I want to make one nutritional choice that's better today than I did yesterday. That's doable. And the same applies in anything. And most of us can see the big picture. I want that end result, but we forget that it's a whole series of days that go into creating a great year. And always better than yesterday really nails that.
Love that. Thank you. I'll share all your good links in the show notes, but where can people connect with you?
Yeah. So my name in LinkedIn, that's a great place to connect with me personally. So Jeff Baietto. And then if you're interested at all in the challenge or the work that we do, Injoy Global is our company. And whether you're an organization or a coach, trainer, speaker, author, you can get more information on what we do there.
I love that. I love that. Would you please leave us with a final thought from your good self?
Well, first of all, thank you. I really like you. You just have such
Thanks, mate.
Such a wonderful energy. You're doing exactly what you should be doing. The world's a better place for you having said yes to this. So thank you, first of all.
Very kind of you, my friend.
And, I think in general, if to everyone listening, if there's something that you is waiting for you, like the version of you, I think we all have that small voice that speaks to us when we're quiet, when we're falling asleep, and it gives us a little nudge as to what's possible. And I would just encourage everybody to get quiet, make some space for yourself to start to tune into the knowledge and the wisdom and the direction that you already possess. Because once you do, then everything falls in line. Once we have that sense that there's an inner compass pointing in the direction of where you actually want to go, then the rest of the distractions, the noise, it just all goes into its right place, and everything that's important and prioritized goes to the front. So make the time to listen to yourself, and I think from there that would be a little takeaway.
It's powerful. Jeff, my friend, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.